On pretty much any job site, there's a risk that most of us just don't see. So today, we're going to make it visible. We're breaking down the chemical hazards we all encounter probably every single day.
So let me ask you, when you think about dangers at work, what comes to mind? I bet it's heavy machinery, maybe working up on a scaffold. And yeah, those are definitely huge risks. But what if the biggest one is something else entirely?
Turns out, a lot of the time, the most serious threat comes in a plain old can, or a bottle, or a drum. It's the hidden danger of hazardous chemicals, and it's a massive invisible risk if you don't know exactly what you're dealing with.
And that's the disconnect right there. What you see looks like just a simple container, but the reality? It holds substances with very specific hazards. Hazards you absolutely have to understand before you even think about opening it.
This leads us right into our first big topic, your right to understand. We're going to dig into the fundamental rule that gives you the power to stay safe around these materials.
And listen, this part is so important. This isn't just, a good idea or some company guideline. It's your actual legal right. Federal standards guarantee that you have to be informed about the chemical hazards at your job, and, this is key, that you understand that information.
So why is this a legal right? Well, because the stakes are incredibly high. We're not talking about minor risks here. If they aren't handled with the right knowledge and care, these chemicals can cause severe, life-changing injuries.
Okay, so how are you supposed to get this critical knowledge? You've got two main safety tools to use. Think of the label like the quick start guide you get with new electronics. It's right on the container, it's your first check. Then you have the safety data sheet, or SDS. That's the full, detailed instruction manual, where you go for the deep dive.
All right, let's start with that first clue, the label. This is your immediate quick start guide to safety, and it's right there on the container for you to see.
Every single one of these standardized labels gives you a ton of info at a glance. You've got the product name, obviously. Then you have these little symbols, the pictograms, that show you the type of hazard. You'll also see a signal word, something like danger or warning, to tell you how serious it is. And finally, you get statements that actually describe the hazard and tell you what to do to stay safe.
But remember, the label is just the summary. It's a great start, but for the full story, you've got to turn to the complete instruction manual, the safety data sheet.
So what is an SDS exactly? It's a super detailed document that comes straight from the manufacturer. Its entire job is to give you the complete picture, what the chemical is, what it can do to you, and how to handle it safely from start to finish. The SDS is basically your complete safety playbook. It doesn't just list the dangers, it tells you exactly how to protect yourself, what specific gear you need to be wearing, and the precise steps you need to take if something goes wrong.
And remember that legal right we talked about? Well, here's where it really comes into play. Your employer is required, by law, to have an SDS for every single hazardous chemical on site. And they have to make sure you can get to it easily. No excuses. Whether it's in a binder or on a computer, you have to be able to find it fast.
Okay, so you've got the right to the information, and you have the tools, the label, and the SDS. But all that information doesn't mean a thing unless you act on it. So that brings us to our next section, how to turn all that knowledge into action.
A huge part of that action comes down to PPE, which stands for Personal Protective Equipment. This is just any gear you wear to create a barrier between you and the hazard. We're talking about things like gloves, goggles, or respirators, all the stuff that's specified in the SDS.
So here it is, your simple three-step process. You got to do this for every chemical every single time. 1. Read the label. 2. Find and review the SDS to get the whole story. And 3. Use every single piece of PPE that the SDS tells you to. No shortcuts, ever.
Now we've covered a lot, but if you take only one thing away from this entire explainer, please let it be this. This is the golden rule. This is the one thing that ties it all together. I'm just going to say it again. Let it sink in. Never use a chemical unless you understand the label, the SDS, and the PPE requirements. This isn't a suggestion. It is the absolute foundation of staying safe.
Seriously, just following that one rule is more powerful than any other safety measure you could take. It's your understanding that becomes your best protection. It's what stops an accident before it even has a chance to happen.
At the end of the day, your safety really is in your own hands. You have the right to know, you have the tools to understand, and you have a simple rule to follow. So the last question is, are you using them? Are you stopping and asking the right questions before you start the work? Because everything depends on it.